Hello, my name is James and I am diagnosed as autistic. I make weekly videos about autism and other related topics such as ADHD and anything else where I help bring the awareness to help others and help us reach our fullest potential. If you're interested in this sort of thing, please subscribe. Well, in this video, I am going to talk about getting an autism diagnosis and talk a little bit about the process and what you can do if you ever want to get an autism diagnosis. Let's say you're a person who has always felt different deep down inside. Perhaps you heard about autism and believe that you might have it because you've always felt different and have constantly seeked out a place where you can actually fit. You've gotten excited because everything you've researched about it seems to check off. However, one thing seems to stand in the way, like a big elephant in the room: getting an official diagnosis. In this video, I'm going to talk about the steps it takes when you get diagnosed, as well as share my personal experience when I got diagnosed. Okay, well, let's get started. The first step in getting through the assessment process of being diagnosed is first understanding why you want to get an autism diagnosis. Let's say you think you have autism and everything you've learned about it seems to speak to you. If you think you have autism, you can simply self-diagnose yourself and call it a day. You may have a busy life, raising a family and holding a full-time job, and taking all the extra time to get an autism diagnosis may seem like too much trouble. There is also the fear of it costing a lot. A typical autism diagnosis will cost you an average of $1,000 to $2,000, or 719 to 1,439 pounds out of the pocket. These burdens, however, might be worth it though. One benefit to being diagnosed is being able to get the assistance that undiagnosed people may not get, such as special assistance in schools and work. Another benefit is that it can open the doors to getting more professional help from doctors or psychiatrists that you otherwise wouldn't get. Moreover, being officially diagnosed can make you feel more comfortable disclosing your condition to other people without worrying about other people doubting you. This is a great time to weigh the pros and cons. If you do find out you do want an official diagnosis, then the next thing you can do is find an autism diagnosis team in your local area that diagnoses people with autism. These can reside in hospitals, medical facilities, or they can visit schools to help diagnose children at the school without having to go to another building, for convenience without having to go to another building. Once you make an appointment, you will often talk to medical professionals. This will be the first main part in the diagnosis assessment process. The appointments will basically be an informal appointment where you'll be asked a series of questions where the professionals can get to know a little bit more about you. They will ask you questions like, what would you like us to do for you, or get a chance to talk a little bit about yourself. However, keep in mind the most important things you need to talk about in regards to your conditions will be saved for the next appointment where you will get an actual assessment. So don't try to go too much into detail at this point. The professionals will then decide whether you should get an assessment or not. Fear not though, most of the people in this phase will consider the next step. Once they give you the go, they will put you on the waiting list. Depending on which cities, states, provinces, or countries you live in, the waiting period will vary. Most waiting times will be determined by how many other people who are also being assessed are being queued ahead of you. It also depends on the type of facility you're being assessed at. However, the wait time generally ranges from about a few days to up to a year and a half. When I was diagnosed as a kid and teenager, the waiting time wasn't that long. However, this was also back in the 80s and 90s when autism and high-functioning autism and Asperger's and the high-functioning autism spectrum disorder of today wasn't mainstreamed yet. During this waiting time, most people will receive questions in the mail while they wait, with questions that they have to answer and fill out that can be used as additional sources of information used for the evaluation process. I remember when I got diagnosed as a high-functioning autistic person as a teenager at the age of 14, I received questions in the mail that my mom filled out, consisting of questions like, when you were a kid, did you like to spin objects? She was then told to have me look over the questions too, and then check off a box if I agreed. I did agree to the question of me spinning objects when I was a kid because I did like spinning batteries on the floor when I was a kid. I liked the way they looked when they spun. During this waiting time, you will probably be anxious, but try to be patient. You can make good use of this time by making it more valuable by using that time to research more about autism, how to cope, so you can get an advanced leg up once you get diagnosed. Because once you get diagnosed, there's a chance you might not know what to do next. Sometimes after people get diagnosed, they sometimes go through a period where they're not really sure what to do next. This will give you advanced heads up. You could also use this time to involve yourself into the autism community. You can join some autism groups like Facebook groups and perhaps meet a few new autistic friends. Once this typically long waiting period time finally comes to an end, you will be asked for your next appointment, and this is when the main part of the assessment happens. This main part of the assessment is when you'll get tested by doing a variety of tests and questions to help the doctors determine your diagnosis. Depending on the facility and area, the assessment process may consist of more than one appointment. If you have 2 appointments, you usually have both appointments scheduled close together within a few days apart. This is not a bad thing though, as the tests that you will do will then be spread out between the 2 appointments, providing a break in between. You will be required to take a battery of tests during these appointments. These tests will test your mental abilities and your thought processes. These tests will often be broken up into individual subtests that include verbal skills, spatial reasoning, math, reading, and memory. I remember one part of the test where I had to arrange a bunch of plastic blocks that were white and red in color and had to arrange the blocks to match a picture that was shown on the testing booklet. I remember doing really well on that subtest and actually enjoying it too. I also remember feeling good when I got to copy a bunch of shapes on the booklet consisting of simple drawings like shapes such as a symbol that looked like the Olympic logo, and then I had to match them on a space accurately. I remember actually having fun doing this too. There was also some tests that I remember where you saw random pictures of people doing random things, and then you had to create a story, and then you had to create your own story based on the characters you saw. I also remember seeing a crazy busy picture of a bunch of people from what I remember that was sitting on a beach, and it was like looking at something from a Waldo book. I remember then having to be asked to recall everything I could possibly remember from that picture. I remembered a lot of things in the picture, however, there were some details like social aspects I didn't really pay as much attention to and pick up on. I remember taking the infamous ink blot portion of the test too, and when I tried to see what those ink blot pictures look like, and as I told the assessor what those pictures look like, I actually took the pictures and turned them sideways and upside down to get an idea of what they look like. I remember I said one of the ink blots looked like an upside down bat as a result of actually flipping the picture upside down. I, however, remember really struggling with the short-term and reading exercises. I remember only listing a maximum of only 5 numbers, and I really wanted to quit when I had to read those silly words that weren't actually words. I don't want to go too far off track here, so I'm going to get to the next point. So in addition to these mental tests, you'll also have to answer questions about yourself, such as what your likes and dislikes are, what your daily routines are, and how you respond to certain situations. Some of these questions you'll be asked to answer out loud, while others you will have to write on paper. Many people who take the assessment say that this part of the test can be hard and mentally draining. However, don't let this stress you out. Much of the stress that people mention is mostly a fear over how accurately they will make the assessment portray them. If you struggle with a certain part of the test, don't sweat it though, because it could actually add to the accuracy of the test results. You're not trying to get into Princeton, you're not trying to get good ACT scores. You're trying to see if you have an accurate assessment. Keep in mind, every autistic person is different. Some might be good at math while others might be bad at it. Some might be good at reading while others might not. If there are questions you felt you didn't provide an accurate answer, just let the doctors know. If you feel like you didn't answer a portion of the test accurately for some reason, keep in mind there will be dozens of other portions of the assessment that will still give you an accurate result. The bottom line is just do the test as best as you can and don't stress out too much about it. Once you're finished with your testing, the doctors will then give you a proper diagnosis. The time it takes for them to gather the results after the testing again may vary between different facilities and teams. However, with all the prior questions and results that add up, it surprisingly doesn't take too long for them to come to a final result. This may happen in the same day, or you might be scheduled another appointment in a few days. This can again be an emotional and stressful situation for many people because at this point you're about to find out whether you're actually autistic or not, and this can stir up a lot of emotions in the past and thoughts about the future. Just try to stay calm and know whatever results you will get is not good or bad, but something that will explain you as a person better. Once you find out where your assessment is, give yourself a pat on the back. Because congratulations, you have now found out You might be autistic or might not be. After you are diagnosed, many people will say they often experience an emotional kind of phase. During this phase, you might feel overly emotional and may experience many positive emotions, but also many negative emotions like confusion of what to do next, or perhaps even feel guilt and feel upset for not being diagnosed sooner. It's natural to feel a bit down over the fact that there's a possibility that you could have missed out on assistance and help when you were younger. However, understand that there is nothing you can do and try to accept it and move forward. Allow yourself time to process these feelings appropriately. You might want to journal, write a blog, or talk to a trusted friend for comfort. Things will only get better from here. When I was younger, I had 2 assessments and I was actually diagnosed twice. The first time I was diagnosed as PDD-NOS, and the second time I was diagnosed as high-functioning autistic. When I went through my first assessment, I got it when I lived in Massachusetts, in Boston, at the Massachusetts General Hospital for Children. There, I traveled an hour from my house from Mattapoisett to Boston, and I camped at the hospital for 3 days until I got my testing completely done. It was a pretty intense experience for me. It kind of gave me a glimpse of what it's like if you're someone that has a mental illness that causes you to have to stay at a hospital indefinitely. I remember being in the moment excited to see all the subway trains as I approached to Boston on the way to hospital because I love trains, but my excitement suddenly came into a sudden gloom when my mom left me at the hospital at some playroom with other kids, having no idea how long I was going to stay at this place and if I was going to actually even leave. I remember being convinced I was going to stay there forever. However, my mother, father, and my sister visited me several times during my 3-day stay, which really helped me a lot. It really gave me comfort. However, the whole experience of being alone in this hospital was kind of weird. I remember constantly being taken out of the playroom to get tests done. I was tired and kind of overwhelmed by the situation, and this probably affected my ability to accurately take the test and get accurate results. I remember one of the tests consisting of a spatial test, and that was a part I was really good at. However, I really wasn't into it at that time, and I probably answered a lot of the questions wrong. I remember getting a brain scan while I was there, and I got completely scared. I remember the lady who took the brain scan saying I was going to have wires be put on my head, and I thought she was actually saying I was going to have wires being put inside my head. I remember looking at myself in the mirror while waiting in the bed with a scared look on my face. Once I saw the brain expert starting to untangle the wires, I saw my face turn into a terrified, crying look on my face before I even became aware of the feelings. I started freaking out when she put the wires on my head. However, I completely calmed down when she put my mom on the phone and I got to talk to her. Once my parents came to see the results of my evaluation, the doctor said I was 13 out of 21 parts as autistic. Keep in mind, this was back in the 80s when autism was considered a severe disability. The doctors told my parents that he thought that my mental struggles were so severe that I was going to need to be institutionalized. When my mom told me the story, I didn't realize how close I was to actually having to live at that hospital indefinitely. My mom actually decided to consider keeping me at that hospital. When the doctor told my dad that I should stay at the hospital, my dad said, "Over my dead body." I ended up going home the next day. Once I got home, it was like I woke up out of a bad dream and my life was back to normal, continuing from where I left off. It was beautiful, the sun came down, it was spring, and I wanted to build a railroad track in the yard. I had my second assessment when I was 14 years old when I was in 8th grade. I again had to do all those tests that most people took during the assessment. I had to take the whole 9 yards. However, I was older this time and I tried harder on the tests. I was diagnosed as high-functioning autistic. I actually didn't realize at the time I was officially diagnosed, and I actually self-diagnosed myself at the time and considered myself autistic on my own. And at that point, I considered it a great feeling that there was actually a name for what I thought I had. It's funny, it wasn't until much later in my life I didn't realize I had an official diagnosis when I looked back at the paper in my later 20s saying that I was officially high-functioning autistic. However, when I found out about that, it really didn't make me feel different because I already believed I was on my own. This is a brief story about my experiences during not just one assessment process, but 2, that eventually got me diagnosed as high-functioning autistic. If a doctor ever says a person is way worse to be true, like someone having to be institutionalized, follow your heart like my dad did and make your own judgment. Well, in this video, I have talked about the autism assessment process and the things many people experience during the assessment, and a little bit of my background in the autism assessment and evaluation process. This is an extensive topic, and there might be other details that I left out depending on the type of evaluation from the facility and country. If you want to learn more details about what to expect in the process in your country, I would recommend doing some additional research. However, this is a typical evaluation process you will most likely experience for the majority of the autism assessment teams you'll expect in the majority of the countries. If you have any other questions, comments, or personal experiences you would like to share related to the autism assessment evaluation process, please share them in the comments below. I hope you found this video helpful. If you do, please give this video a like and share it with a friend. Please be healthy, safe, keep being informed, embrace your interests, and most importantly, love yourself because love is the way. Thanks for watching and have a great day.